This is why rulers and generals cloak themselves in ceremony and splendor, not merely to impress their subjects, but to remind themselves that they are more than men. Yet beneath the velvet and gold, they are just as vulnerable as the beggar in the street. Understand this: the illusion of power can be a weapon, but it is also a poison. A weapon because it allows a leader to project strength even when he lacks it. Armies may obey a general who looks unshakable, even if his strategy is flawed. Subjects may bow to a king who appears divine, even if he trembles with doubt. But it is also a poison, for when the illusion is believed too deeply by the ruler himself, he forgets that appearances are fragile. The moment the mask cracks, chaos spills forth. Look to history, and you will see the corpses of rulers who mistook illusion for substance. The Roman emperors paraded as gods, but they fell to daggers in the Senate. The French kings feasted in Versailles, believing themselves untouchable, until mobs dragged them through the streets. Power that is not real cannot endure. It is like a flame that burns bright but leaves only ashes. Now, why do men obey illusions? Because they fear isolation more than deception. It is easier for a man to kneel with the crowd than to stand alone in defiance. When all eyes turn to the throne, few dare to question whether the throne itself holds any true authority. The illusion persists because it is convenient, and here lies the lesson. A cunning ruler must master the illusion but never trust it. Project strength, inspire awe, and make the masses believe. But in the shadows, secure real control through loyalty, fear, and influence. Think of the chessboard. The king is the most precious piece, yet he is also the weakest. He moves slowly, and without protection he is quickly cornered. Still, the entire game revolves around him. His value is not in his strength, but in the illusion that the match ends with his fall. The pawns, knights, and bishops fight for him, but the wise player knows that the true power lies not in the king's crown, but in the unseen hand of the one moving the pieces. So it is in life. The man who believes he is the king may simply be the piece, while another, hidden, silent, uncelebrated, controls the entire board. When you walk through this world, look closely. Do not be fooled by the grandeur of office towers, the medals on a chest, or the gilded seats of politicians. Ask instead, who benefits if this man falls? Who whispers in his ear? Who supplies his strength? For often the one in front is but the puppet, and the puppeteer smiles from the shadows, never revealing his strings. The illusion of power will always exist, for men need symbols more than they need truth. But those who can pierce the illusion gain an advantage that others cannot. They see the world as it is, not as it is performed, and in that clarity, they find the first step toward real power. At the bottom of the ladder of power lies the authority of position. It is the crown placed upon the head, the badge pinned to the chest, the title written beside the name. This is the weakest form of power, yet it is the one most men covet. They chase titles like children chase toys, believing the mere possession of rank makes them rulers. A position grants authority, yes, but only the kind that rests on the recognition of others. A king is obeyed because he is crowned, a judge respected because the law grants him the seat, a general followed because the state calls him commander. Strip away these symbols and the man remains what he has always been: ordinary. The moment the uniform is removed, he holds no power but the memory of what once was. The danger of positional power lies in its fragility. It does not belong to the man, it belongs to the office. He borrows it for as long as he wears the title, but when another inherits the role, the power passes effortlessly into new hands. Consider the monarch who dies. His servants instantly shift their loyalty to the heir, for their obedience was never to him as a man, but to the throne itself. The crown does not cling to the skull. It rests lightly and moves with the tides of fortune. And yet, men intoxicated by titles believe they are invincible. A governor commands soldiers, a banker dictates terms, a priest speaks as if with divine authority, but their strength is conditional. It endures only while the people agree that the role deserves obedience. Should the crowd withdraw recognition, the governor is reduced to a man with papers, the banker to a man with ink, the priest to a man with words. The illusion collapses, and with it, their authority. Why then do men pursue position with such hunger? Because it is the easiest door into power. It requires no cunning, no mastery of influence, no true fear to be inspired. One must only be appointed, elected, or inherited into it. And yet, once there, the wise know position is only the beginning, not the end. To stay at this level is to risk being discarded as quickly as one is chosen. Look to courts and bureaucracies, and you will see countless examples. The official who struts proudly in his robes believes he commands respect. But when he is dismissed, the same men who once bowed to him will not even turn their heads as he passes. His respect was never his own, it belonged to the office. A true wielder of power understands this, and while he wears the title, he uses it to cultivate loyalty, fear, or influence that endures even when the title is stripped away. The throne, the uniform, the desk in the corner office, they are all scaffolds. They elevate the man above others for a time, but scaffolds can be dismantled, and when they are, the man falls. But if he uses that height wisely, he can build foundations that no successor can erase. This is the art of transforming positional authority into personal power. Many rulers in history have failed here. They relied solely on the authority of their title. They believed the crown itself would guarantee obedience. But when challengers rose, they found their supposed subjects eager to betray them, for no deeper bond held them in place. The position commanded, but the man did not. Their downfall was inevitable. Think of the soldier who follows orders from his general. He obeys not because he admires the man, but because the chain of command demands it. Yet if the soldier sees his general is incompetent, cowardly, or weak, his loyalty fades. In battle, he may still march forward, but in his heart, he already seeks another leader to follow. When the tide turns, he abandons the general without hesitation. This is the peril of depending solely on positional power, obedience without loyalty, compliance without devotion. And yet, positional power has its uses. It can open doors that remain closed to others. It can give the appearance of strength, the authority to command, and the access to resources. But the cunning ruler knows that this level must be used only as a platform, a stage upon which he builds real, lasting power. He must transform his position into something greater, into influence, into fear, into loyalty that does not vanish when the title is gone. Otherwise, he is nothing more than a placeholder waiting for the next man to take his seat. This level is where many rise but few remain. It is where the ambitious begin, but where the complacent die. To believe that position alone is enough is to be deceived by the simplest, weakest illusion of all. If love is fickle, fear is steadfast. Men may adore you one day and despise you the next, but fear, when crafted wisely, remains loyal. It binds men not through affection, but through survival. And survival is a chain stronger than admiration. for even the most rebellious heart hesitates when the cost of defiance is death. At this level, power reveals its teeth. Unlike position or favor, fear does not rely on illusions or generosity. It is not borrowed from a title, nor purchased with wealth. It is carved into the hearts of men with the blade of consequence. When a ruler commands by fear, his subjects obey not because they wish to, but because they dare not do otherwise. Consider the ruler who rules by kindness. His people may love him, they may praise him, but when a stronger hand rises, their affection vanishes. They will betray him for protection, for profit, for survival. Love is fragile, fleeting, and conditional. Fear, on the other hand, is enduring, for it strikes at the most primal instinct of mankind, the instinct to avoid pain, to cling to life. But fear is an art. Wield it clumsily, and it becomes cruelty. Cruelty breeds hatred, and hatred breeds rebellion. The wise ruler does not drown his subjects in terror. He doses fear like medicine, enough to command obedience, never so much that it drives them into desperation. A people who have nothing left to lose will rise against their master, for death itself becomes no longer frightening. But a people who live under calculated fear balanced with necessity, will remain obedient because they still have something to preserve. Look to the tyrants of history. Those who ruled by unrestrained cruelty were dragged from their thrones and slaughtered. But those who mastered the balance of fear maintained their rule even when despised. The subjects may whisper in corners, but their hands will not move against the ruler because the risk is too great. It is not love that keeps order, but the shadow of punishment. Fear also breeds respect of a different kind. A ruler who is feared need not ask for obedience. It is given before the command is spoken. His silence carries weight, his presence alone enough to still the room. Men walk cautiously around him, careful not to offend. In this way, fear magnifies authority, making even small gestures feel decisive. Even trivial orders seem unchallengeable. But there is a secret within fear that few understand. Fear must be predictable. When men know the boundaries of your wrath, they shape themselves to avoid it. But if your punishments are erratic, your cruelty unpredictable, then fear becomes chaos, and chaos invites resistance. The people must believe that punishment is certain, but also just in its own ruthless way. The soldier who deserts knows death awaits him. The traitor understands betrayal will be met with ruin. The conspirator accepts that his crime carries consequence. If fear becomes random, men no longer fear the law. They only hate the man, and hatred sharpens daggers. Fear also extends beyond direct punishment. It lives in reputation. A ruler who has executed one traitor may not need to execute a second, for the memory of the first lingers in the minds of all. Fear, once established, multiplies itself. It spreads in whispers faster than any decree, carrying your power into every corner without you lifting a hand. The executioner's axe swings once, but its echo commands for years. In every court, every army, every state, there will be those who test boundaries. Without fear, these men grow bold. They whisper, they plot, they scheme. But when fear is present, even the boldest pause. They weigh the cost of rebellion against the certainty of punishment, and in that hesitation, their plots dissolve into silence. Fear paralyzes ambition, it cages defiance, it makes obedience the safer path, and safety is the strongest lure of all. Imagine a general standing before his soldiers. If he is loved, they may cheer his name, but will they march into certain death for him? Perhaps, perhaps not. If he is feared, they march without question, for disobedience is more terrifying than the enemy. Love may inspire bravery, but fear enforces discipline. It ensures that the chain of command does not break, that order does not collapse into chaos. Armies, kingdoms, empires, all require fear, for without it they dissolve into disorder. And yet, those who rule by fear must always remember, it is not cruelty itself that sustains power, but the certainty of consequence. The ruler who balances fear with reason does not need to spill blood every day. He spills enough to remind men of the price of defiance, then lets silence do the rest. Silence, after all, is the most powerful servant of fear. It allows the imagination to do the work of the sword. The sharpest sword cuts flesh, but the sharpest tongue conquers minds. At this level, power no longer depends on title or wealth or even fear. Here, men rule not by force of arms, but by force of thought. Influence is the art of shaping perception, guiding belief, and making others act as you desire while imagining it was their own choice. Influence is the most subtle and dangerous form of power, for it hides its chains beneath the illusion of freedom. When a ruler governs through influence, his subjects believe they are free, even as they march exactly where he directs them. They do not feel commanded, they feel convinced, and this is the brilliance of influence. It replaces obedience with consent, while never surrendering control. To command by position is to borrow authority from an office. To command by fear is to impose obedience with consequences. But to command by influence is to enter the minds of men, to shape their desires, to make them crave the very actions that serve your ambition. Influence is the invisible hand that moves the chessboard, unseen yet undeniable, subtle yet absolute. Consider the power of persuasion. A king may raise taxes by decree, and his subjects will grumble but obey out of fear. Yet the king who masters influence convinces his people that the tax is for their benefit, that it strengthens their land, that it secures their safety. The people then pay not reluctantly, but willingly, and may even thank him for it. Here lies the superiority of influence. It makes resistance appear foolish, even self-destructive. Influence thrives in stories, symbols, and narratives. Men do not follow raw logic, they follow meaning. The ruler who understands this weaves myths around himself. He becomes not just a man, but a symbol of destiny, a father of the nation, a chosen figure ordained by fate. Through influence, he transforms his authority into something sacred, and sacred power cannot be questioned. Influence wraps power in myth, and myths outlive men. But influence is not only for kings and rulers. The minister whispering into the ear of the throne wields it. The advisor whose words guide the ruler's hand commands it. The merchant who shapes markets, the priest who shapes beliefs, the philosopher who shapes ideas, all live within this level of power. They may not wear crowns, but they often move those who do. History is full of monarchs remembered as powerful, while the true influence lay hidden in the shadows beside them. Influence does not demand force, it demands patience. It is not seized in a moment, but cultivated over time. One must listen, observe, understand what drives men, their fears, their hopes, their vanity. Once you know what they crave, you can make them believe you are the key to fulfilling it. Give them a narrative they cannot resist, and they will follow willingly into their own submission. Unlike fear, influence does not end at the edge of the sword. Fear compels obedience only while the threat is present. Influence endures because it reshapes the very thoughts of those it touches. A fearful subject obeys when watched, but a convinced subject obeys even in solitude, believing it is his own will. Influence is self-sustaining. Once planted, it grows within men, and they spread it to others without your command. This is why propaganda is more enduring than violence. Armies can conquer cities, but words can conquer generations. The empire that rules through terror will collapse when the sword grows dull. But the empire that rules through ideas can survive even in ruin, because the people themselves carry its belief forward. Influence makes men their own wardens, their own enforcers, their own disciples. The ruler who masters influence wields a power no blade can match. He can direct a crowd without raising his voice, alter the destiny of a state without lifting a hand. He plants thoughts like seeds, and the people water them with their own convictions. Soon, they defend his power as if it were their own creation, blind to the truth that their very desires were crafted for them. And yet, influence is dangerous, for it must remain invisible. The moment men realize they are being manipulated, the spell is broken. Influence is strongest when it feels natural, when obedience feels like freedom, when the subject cannot distinguish his own thought from the one implanted within him. To reveal influence is to destroy it. The master of this level never says, "Do this." He makes others say, "We must do this," and in their conviction lies his control. In courts and kingdoms, in churches and armies, in marketplaces and assemblies, influence rules more powerfully than fear or position. For fear compels bodies, but influence commands souls. Position demands recognition, but influence reshapes reality itself. At this level, a ruler need not strike, need not threaten, need not even command. He simply whispers, and the world bends. Every throne is temporary, every crown fragile, every ruler mortal. Men rise, men fall, and their bones turn to dust in the same earth as the beggars. Yet some achieve what most cannot. They shape a world that outlives them. This is the highest level of power, legacy. Not the fleeting rule of one man, but the eternal rule of an idea, a system, a creation that binds men long after its master is gone. At this level, power transcends the individual. It is no longer tied to the strength of an army, the loyalty of subjects, or the fear of punishment. Instead, it becomes woven into the fabric of society itself. When a ruler masters legacy, he no longer needs to be present to command obedience, for the structures he leaves behind continue to govern in his name. Consider the law. A tyrant may decree with force, but once his decree becomes law, written and enforced by institutions, it no longer requires his presence. Generations obey it without question, never knowing or caring who first set it in motion. The man dies, but the law lives, binding countless lives as if his hand still directs them from the grave. This is legacy, when your authority becomes eternal through the system you build. Religions, empires, philosophies, all are testaments to legacy. The prophet who speaks once, but whose words echo for centuries. The conqueror who dies, but whose empire endures in institutions, culture, and memory. The thinker who pens ideas that shape laws and nations long after his bones are dust. These men understood the truth. Personal power is mortal, but legacy is immortal. But legacy does not arise by chance. It must be crafted deliberately. The ruler who seeks it must look beyond his own lifetime, must care not only for the obedience of today, but for the obedience of tomorrow. He must embed his power into traditions, institutions, myths, and structures, so that even in his absence, the people continue to live within the world he designed. Fear controls the present, influence shapes the near future, but legacy dominates eternity. A tyrant may inspire obedience, an orator may persuade a generation, but a lawgiver, a prophet, a founder, he creates a chain of power that cannot be severed, because it is no longer tied to his flesh. It is tied to belief, to culture, to the very rhythm of society, and legacy has another advantage. It hides the ruler's hand across time. Few today know the names of those who first invented money, yet the world bends to its logic every day. Few know the rulers who crafted the first bureaucracies, yet we live in their machinery. Few recall the thinkers who defined morality, yet billions live within their definitions. These forgotten architects still rule us, their power embedded in the structures we mistake for natural. To build legacy, one must master patience and vision. The wise ruler asks, "What will men obey when I am gone? What will they defend without knowing it was mine to begin with?" He does not settle for fear dies with the tyrant. He does not settle for wealth scatters at death. He does not settle for position, for titles pass to others. Instead, he plants roots so deep they cannot be torn out without tearing apart the world itself. Look at empires that lasted centuries. Rome did not survive because of one emperor's strength, but because its systems, its laws, its legions, its order outlived individuals. Dynasties endure not because of one king, but because of institutions of succession, rituals of legitimacy, myths of divine right that turn bloodlines into eternal rulers. Even when kings were weak, the legacy carried them. This is the genius of legacy. It protects even the mediocre. A ruler of no great skill may still command obedience if he inherits a system built by one who understood how to embed power into the bones of a nation. Legacy shields successors, cushions collapse, and carries power forward even when individuals falter. But legacy is also the most difficult level to reach, for it demands sacrifice. To build it, one must think beyond personal pleasure, beyond temporary gain. One must create structures that bind not only subjects but successors. It requires ruthlessness of a different kind, not in the execution of traitors, but in the execution of time itself. The ruler must discipline himself to build not only for the present but for the centuries. Here lies the paradox. The man who rules by legacy disappears, yet becomes immortal. His name may fade, but his hand remains unseen, shaping lives long after his death. This is the highest mastery of power, when the ruler himself is no longer needed, because the world itself has been bent into his design. Men speak of power as if it were a gift bestowed, as if kings are born to rule and the rest are born to serve. But here lies the truth. Power is never given. It is taken, it is sharpened, it is guarded. And once seized, it must be cloaked in 1,000 disguises, for nothing invites envy, betrayal, and rebellion more swiftly than naked ambition. This lesson, the final and most brutal of all, reveals the nature of power itself. A title may grant authority, wealth may purchase loyalty, fear may enforce obedience, influence may shape desire, and legacy may outlive death. But beneath all of these, one law governs them all. Power belongs only to those who dare to grasp it, and who are ruthless enough to hold it. Most men are weak not because they lack opportunity, but because they lack the courage to seize it. They hesitate, they hope for permission, they wait for favor. But history does not remember the cautious. History remembers the bold, the ones who acted before others dared, who saw hesitation as the weakness it is, and who exploited it without mercy. But once taken, power must be preserved, and preservation demands deception. A ruler cannot parade his hunger for dominance openly, for men despise the one who admits he seeks to dominate them. Instead, he must wrap his ambition in virtue. He must speak of duty, of honor, of service to the people. He must smile while concealing the blade. The subjects will bow more willingly if they believe he serves them, even as he chains them. This is why appearances are more vital than truth. It is not necessary to be virtuous, only to appear virtuous. Not necessary to be merciful, only to appear merciful. Not necessary to be just, only to appear just. The masses do not see the world as it is. They see the theater you present to them, and in that theater, the mask becomes more powerful than the man. Yet behind the mask, the ruler must be steel. When betrayal stirs, he must strike before the whisper becomes a shout. When rivals gather, he must divide them before they unite. When threats emerge, he must eliminate them so thoroughly that none dare follow their path. Mercy, when used, must be strategic, never offered freely, never squandered on those who may later rise against you. For one forgiven enemy today becomes a dagger at your back tomorrow. And still, the lesson is not only about cruelty. A ruler who is feared without being respected will be overthrown, while a ruler who commands both respect and fear will endure. Balance is the key. Too much leniency and men grow bold. Too much brutality and men grow desperate. But to be feared enough that disobedience seems unthinkable, and respected enough that loyalty seems profitable. This is mastery. The Machiavellian ruler also understands the economy of loyalty. Men do not remain loyal out of pure devotion. They are loyal because it serves them, because they profit from it, because betraying you costs more than serving you. Therefore, a ruler must constantly weigh the balance of rewards and punishments. He must ensure that loyalty is always the safer path, that betrayal always carries a cost too high to bear, and above all, the ruler must never be predictable. Predictability is a weakness. If your enemies can anticipate you, they can outmaneuver you. If your allies know your limits, they will exploit them. The wise ruler is like the storm, unpredictable, untouchable, yet always feared. Men should never feel certain of what you will allow, only certain that you will not be defeated. This lesson also teaches that power is not a single possession. It is a constant struggle. Every day, rivals conspire, allies waver, enemies sharpen their knives. To rest is to invite destruction. A ruler must remain vigilant, always watching, always calculating, always striking when necessary. Power is not a mountain to be climbed and conquered. It is a fortress under siege, defended endlessly against all who seek to breach it. Even legacy, the highest form of power, requires protection while the ruler lives. Systems can be corrupted, myths can be dismantled, institutions can be subverted if the ruler allows them to rot. Thus, vigilance extends not only to enemies outside but to decay within. Power must be nurtured, pruned, and guarded as a gardener tends a flame, lest it flicker and die. This is why the Machiavellian lesson is harsh but true. Sentiment is a luxury, morality a mask, compassion a weapon only when it serves survival. To cling to ideals at the expense of control is to invite ruin. Power is the law, and all else is decoration. The wise ruler accepts this, embraces it, and in doing so, achieves what others cannot. Men imagine that power is a gift, that it is bestowed by crowns, by elections, by the blessings of gods, or by the favor of the crowd. But this is the sweetest lie. Power is never given. It is seized, guarded, and concealed beneath masks. Those who wait for it to be handed to them will die waiting, while those who take it carve their names into history. Here lies the essence of the Machiavellian lesson. The world belongs not to the just, not to the kind, not even to the wise, but to the ruthless few who understand the laws of power. Power is a prize in constant motion, shifting hands, tested, challenged, threatened, and only those who seize it with boldness, protect it with vigilance, and disguise it with skill can hold it long enough to shape the world. To seize power, one must strike when others hesitate. The crowd hesitates because it clings to morality, to caution, to fear of failure. But hesitation is the death of ambition. The man who moves first, decisive, unflinching, captures what others merely dream of. Fortune favors not the cautious, but the daring, the one who risks everything while others waste their time in thought. This is why history remembers conquerors and founders, not because they were always stronger, but because they acted before rivals could act. Yet seizing power is only the beginning. Once taken, it must be protected, and protection requires a vigilance that never sleeps. Every throne attracts rivals, every crown breeds envy, every victory summons challengers. A ruler must see betrayal long before it blooms, must sense treachery in smiles, must hear conspiracies in whispers. To protect power, one must cut down threats at their roots, quickly, mercilessly, and without hesitation. Mercy given to an enemy today is a dagger in the ribs tomorrow, but power unprotected is fragile, and power unmasked is vulnerable. This is why it must also be disguised. Naked ambition terrifies men, for it reveals the truth they refuse to face, that all are prey to the will of one. To prevent rebellion, ambition must be cloaked in virtue. Speak of service, of duty, of justice, of sacrifice, while behind the mask you sharpen your sword. Appear merciful while you strike down rivals. Appear generous while you buy loyalty. Appear weak when plotting strength. The disguise is as vital as the blade, for men obey more willingly when they believe you rule for them, not for yourself. The Machiavellian ruler understands that appearances matter more than reality. It is not necessary to be loved only to appear lovable, not necessary to be just only to appear just, not necessary to be faithful only to appear faithful. Men do not see the truth. They see the stage, the theater, the mask you present. And when the mask is convincing, they defend the illusion as if it were reality itself. Yet the cunning know that even a mask must shift. Too rigid and it cracks, too transparent and it reveals the truth beneath. Therefore, the art of disguise lies in movement, sometimes merciful, sometimes cruel, sometimes generous, sometimes ruthless. Let no man predict you fully, for predictability breeds vulnerability. Be like the storm, changing, ungraspable, yet always commanding respect. The Machiavellian lesson also demands that one views loyalty with suspicion. Men are loyal only while it suits them. They follow a ruler who provides wealth, protection, or opportunity. But the moment another offers more,